whatever sounds that come out of me during my presentation, I apologize in advance. Right, firstly, thank you for giving me this opportunity today to share a little bit of what I know regarding learning diversity among students of this generation. The concept of learning diversity has already been touched on by Dr. JJ earlier today, as well as Dr. Rislim. I'll just elaborate a tiny bit more. To top it off, I would also be introducing the concept of big data and how it would relate to us in teaching and learning. Diversity. This is a very important concept in today's universe, and since we live in a diverse world with rich and diverse cultures, every individual tends to be different. But how is this diversity addressed? And more importantly, how does it affect us in teaching and learning? Our students here in UMP are not just multiracial, they are also now multinational. This diversity does not just make the environment in UMP more colorful, not literally of course. It makes predicting how someone reacts to a certain teaching method totally impossible. We split the diversity into 4 remedial parts: family background, language proficiency, ethnicity, and financial background. We have diversity from the perspective of family background. Every student is brought up in a unique family environment. The number of siblings that someone has, as well as the level of education in the family, and the number of siblings who had gone through tertiary education greatly influences the way a student thinks, acts, and reacts in teaching and learning. The proficiency of language also plays a huge part in teaching and learning activities. The better proficiency a student has in the English language, the less time he or she has to spend to think about how the notes can be translated into a language more familiar to him, less time to think about what this word means, and so on. However, there is also a possibility that once the student has a great proficiency of the English language, he or she becomes complacent or lazy and doesn't pay attention that much in class anymore. Either way, it still contributes to what we call diversity. Ethnic background also has a part to play in the diversity of the students. There has been various studies linking learning behavior with ethnic background. To all the researchers out there, don't worry, I have proof of what I'm talking about. I'll just cite one interesting work. Michael McGraw from University of Florida. He researched a group of students with diverse ethnic background for a long period of time, observing how various students react to various teaching methods and subject matter. The result was clear. Ethnic background has a major influence on the learning preference of a student. To those of you who are interested to find out more, you may read Michael's work on the internet or find me for a link. Finally, financial background. I do not wish to elaborate too much on financial background, but students with different financial upbringing approach university life in a different way. There are students who are more financially gifted than the others, thus creating a gulf in the class between the students, affecting how they approach teaching and learning. And living in Malaysia, we are blessed with a multiracial, multicultural, and harmonious living. This situation also provides a unique challenge to us educators on how we can use this diversity to further enhance our approach to make our students understand what we teach. With all the diversity that I mentioned earlier, it would be impossible for us as educators to teach each individual a different way. Imagine we have a classroom of 120 students. What if we have to approach each and every student a different way? It would be impossible for us to finish teaching in time. Thankfully, there are 3 main approaches that I will outline that we can adopt in order to cater for most of this diversity. These approaches were mentioned by Dr. Ruslim earlier today, which are visual, kinesthetic, as well as auditory. This is based on a model created by Neil Fleming a teacher from New Zealand. He created a world-renowned VAK education model that is used as the basis for many researchers today. Right, now on to the first learning preference, or the visual learning preference. The type of student who prefers visual learning preference learn through the medium of sight. They associate the subject through graphic organizers, which are visual representation of knowledge, concepts, thoughts, or ideas. By representing information spatially with images, students are able to focus on the meaning, reorganize, and group similar ideas easily to make better use of their visual memory. A review study concluded that this type of student have strength in the following areas. Firstly, retention. Students retain information better, making it easy for the students to recall the information more quickly. Reading comprehension also improves. Students are also able to comprehend everything that they read better when they associate it with visual cues. For example, reading a plain text file would not be as beneficial to this type of student compared with reading a short passage accompanied by a few diagrams. Students' achievements also improves greatly, be it students with learning difficulties or without learning difficulties. Finally, when students associate visuals with what they learn, it develops their critical thinking further because they relate, they process, and then they associate photos or images with what they learn. The second learning preference is kinesthetic or tactile learning. Kinesthetic learning is a style in which learning takes place by the students carrying out physical activities rather than just listening to a lecture or watching a demonstration. People with a preference for kinesthetic learners are also commonly known as doers. They do. According to the theory of learning styles, students who have predominantly kinesthetic style are thought to be discovery learners. They have a realization through doing rather than thinking before initiating an action. Kinesthetic learners usually succeed in activities such as chemistry experiments, sports, class where you have to act or star in a play, these kind of things. It is common for kinesthetic learners to focus on two different things at the same time, while remembering what they do in relation to one another. Basically, this is the type of student who do not excel when we bombard them with theories after theories. However, the moment they get to perform an experiment, they would understand the whole concept by themselves. Finally, auditory learning is a learning style in which a person learns through listening, purely through listening. An auditory learner depends on hearing and speaking as the main way of learning. Auditory learners must be able to hear what is being said in order to understand the content. By simply reading a passage or watching a demonstration, they would not be able to understand it. They also use their listening skills and repeating skills to sort through information that is sent to them. Auditory learners may have a knack for ascertaining the true meaning of someone's words by listening to audible signals or audio cues in the voice of the presenter. For example, when memorizing a phone number, how many of you repeat the phone number to yourself? No? Anyone? So these are examples of someone who learns through auditory movement. So basically, you listen to yourself repeat, say the phone number again and again. That's what you remember. This type of learner generally prefers to listen to a lecture, trying to remember what a speaker says through the intonation, the pauses in their speech, and the different variations in the delivery of the content. They also remember better when there's ambient sound in the background. For example, there are students who cannot, just simply cannot read something without music in the background. If they do, they won't remember anything that they read. How many of us are like that? Can I see a show of hands? Right, we have Dr. Nick. A clear example of an auditory learner. Maybe in the future we have to allow students to bring in headphones and iPods into class. You know, certain cases of students, we allow them to bring headphones and iPods to the class in order for them to understand better the concept of teaching and learning. So right, I've presented 3 different learning preferences here. Do you know which one you are? Anyone besides Dr. Nick? Obviously she's an auditory person. Anyone else have figured out which learning preference they have? Auditory as well. Anyone here who's purely visual? Visual, right. Alright, so we have a few hands over there. So it is not easy for us to ascertain which learning preference that we have with just listening to one lecture. By the way, this presentation, which one do you think I'm catering for? Visual, kinesthetic, or auditory? Which one? Visual, kinesthetic, or auditory? Can I have a simple show of hands? Who thinks this is, let's go to the least likely one. Who thinks this is kinesthetic? Right, there is someone who thinks this is kinesthetic. Who thinks this is visual? And who thinks this is auditory? I see some of you raise your hands twice. I'm pointing to Dr. Nick. So right, she's not wrong. Okay? This talk is a combination of both visual and auditory. The reason it's visual is because I have provided visual cues that associates to what I'm talking about. However, I do not provide a lot of text. No, I want you to associate the pictures that I've presented with what I say. Now that we have established the 3 learning preference styles that we have through the VAK model, how do we, split the students that we have here in UMP? Sorry, I use UMP as an example for those of you who are not from UMP. How do we split the students, for example, UMP students, into these categories? Well, it's not something novel. It's not something new. It's the age-old method of test taking. Through getting the students to sit for a specifically designed test of specifically designed questions or questionnaires, we can ascertain the type of preference that they would prefer. Another method is through face-to-face interview. The interviewer may ask a few specific oral questions that are designed to gauge the student's interest in visual, audio cues, or kinesthetic experience. Of course, every individual have their own learning preference, and these preferences may change over time. Let's say when the student walks into UMP, we give them a set of tests, and they tested visual. That does not mean that until that person graduates, he only likes visual. Okay? So these tests must be done periodically to see whether someone evolves. Maybe once he starts with visual, through the years, he progresses and he likes all 3 styles. There are also students who are competent in more than one type of preference, 2 or even 3. However, the students who are competent in all 3 are very rare. Let's use a telecommunications company as an example. All sorts of information, be it beneficial or even useless data. IT guys would then have to locate this data, capture, integrate and cleanse the data and prepare them for the analysis. The analyst would then analyze the data that is stored in the warehouse. This analysis takes time since they would have to go through all the terabytes of data. Through the analysis, the stakeholders would then be able to figure out what has happened as well as why it has happened. But that was history. Soon, the world started getting smarter. Everything from cars, shoes, medical devices, even gadgets that we carry around with us everywhere started to be connected through the internet. All these devices create valuable data, Every time we pick up a smartphone to make a call, it creates a call detail record. These records are structured data that includes the number you have dialed, the routing details, your geolocation, as well as the length of your call. Hundreds of billions of data records are created every day, and the latest processing power and memory available today makes it possible for analysts to perform analysis on these records in real time. However, the sheer number of records make these data so overwhelming. Add that to the variety of the data available, some structured, some unstructured, it is still very, very challenging for the analyst. Fortunately, IT infrastructure and software continues to evolve. New data management softwares allow us to explore data without the need to change its formats. So we can analyze it in the raw format. This means analysts no longer need to spend time structuring the data before analyzing it. Instead, they can dump all this data into a central repository and perform analytics on the various of data all at once. This allows analysts to discover interesting patterns within the data. The big data movement gives meaning to all these patterns and creates an automated analytics on the go. To put in the scenario of the telecommunications company, basically big data analytics allow all the data involved with the company to be linked, analyzed, and presented to stakeholders almost at real time. We are talking about billions of terabytes of data, all analyzed and processed at real time. What's more, interesting trends or patterns that emerge can also be identified and used for their benefits. So imagine if we can analyze all this data from a huge telecommunications company, all in real time, what can we do with the data for our students here in UMP? So far, there isn't a concrete way for us to use big data analytics for teaching and learning. But there's no one who's saying that we can't develop one for our future. It is my personal ambition for UMP that one day we have a complete big data analytics in place in our university where student profiles, their learning preference, their exam results, lecturers' assessment, and all relevant data be analyzed automatically, and the result of the analysis be used to further increase their potential in the university. Imagine one day when we get our teaching assignments through our e-community online, not only do we get our class timetable, the names of the students in the class, we also get what are their learning preferences, right? Imagine we get a set of students, 30 students, who are 80% interested in visual learning preference and 20% in audio. We can then design our curriculum, design the way that we deliver our subject in a way that will be most beneficial to the students. Imagine further, if the big data analytics could actually go into our subjects as well. It will then analyze for each particular module what is the best way that we should deliver our subjects in order to give the biggest impact to. Well, all this is not just a pipe dream. It is possible to be done with the technology that is available in our hands today. And who knows, maybe sooner rather than later, we would be at the forefront of this. This way, we can provide a completely tailor-made education for every individual with the diverse background with the help of the VAK learning model, as well as big data analytics. That would truly put UMP on the map. Maybe our new tagline could be UMP, where we offer tailor-made education for everyone. And on that note, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.